Hello. Yeah. So I hope you can hear me. And Artur, can you confirm? Can you see my screen, right?
I can see your screen. I can see your camera. I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I think we should start then. So today we will talk about one of the, let's say, main or greatest features of 6.4, which also includes some features from 6.2. Yes, so those are incremental configuration updates, a feature which will save you at least a lot of time, and maybe will give your Zabbix additional, let's say, performance boost. Okay, so before we even begin to talk about those incremental changes, let's discuss a little bit. So what is Zabbix configuration, how it works, and where it's stored? Yes, and let's start with the configuration cache. So I think most of you know that Zabbix monitoring configuration is stored in a relational database. Yes, monitoring configuration means your items, triggers, so all things you are monitoring. Yes, so we have a front end, and in the front end you will modify the configuration, and then you when you will press the update button, you will write the configuration into the database, and then the Zabbix server and Zabbix proxy will synchronize this configuration with themselves. And the biggest problem is that there is always a delay, right? So when you input something into the front end, once you press the add button, the information is submitted to database. Yes, but the server and the proxy are doing scheduled updates, so there is always some kind of delay. And you can see the configuration settings from Zabbix 6 in this slide. So you have a config cache, and you need to specify enough memory for it, by the way. Yes, be careful, because if you will not give enough memory to config cache, then Zabbix server will just crash. Yes, so always keep some reserve here. Yes, and then you can see the cache update frequency. And the cache update frequency in Zabbix 6 by default is 1 minute, which may be like not so much, but if you are testing something, if you are developing something, or if you just want to get your result, this 1 minute can be a very long time. Yes, and sometimes you even need to increase it. Why you may need to increase it, we will discuss later. Yes, okay, and yeah, so how it works, and why we need the config cache, and why Zabbix cannot read it directly from the database, and so on. So on this slide, you can see that on the left side, you have data collectors. Yes, the processes which must collect data. And then on the right side, you have database and you have triggers. So how this process works? Yes, data collectors collect data. Then you have preprocessors. The preprocessors reprocess data, and the data goes to history cache. Then you have history sinkers, which writes to database, right? But all those processes, they need a configuration. Yes, they need to know what to do, which actions to perform. And yeah, because of that, we have a config cache, a memory region, yes, which stores configuration, and data collectors knows which metrics to collect, and preprocessors knows which preprocessing steps to execute. Yes, and history sinkers will detect problems based on triggers. Yes, and then there is one more process missing on this slide. Yes, the link between the database and between the config cache. Yes, and it's here. You have a process which we call configuration syncer. Yes, so the process which reads config updates from the database and writes it into the cache. And what was the biggest problem with the config syncer all this time? It was reading full configuration every time. Yes, you can see on this example configuration syncer took 23 seconds to update configuration. And I have seen results even worse. Yes, I have seen 5 minutes. I have seen 10 minutes. If you are talking about very large enterprise level customers, right? Because what's the problem? As I said, the history syncer is reading full configuration every time. If the configuration is, let's say, 3 gigabytes, it will read 3 gigabytes from the database. Yes, because there is no other option. And this will happen periodically, right? This will happen every minute, or maybe you will increase this period. Maybe this will happen like every 10 minutes or every 1 hour. Yes, but you know, I think you can see here some kind of waste of resource, right? Because basically, I don't think your Zabbix configuration is changing rapidly, like every 10 minutes or every hour. Yes, maybe some hosts are added, maybe some hosts disappear. LLD rules may change something, but the configuration as it is not changing so much, right? And at least in Zabbix 6.2, we optimized it. If you want to, by the way, if you want to know how busy is your config syncer, you can look in the process list, how long time it is taking to synchronize here, right? You can see the second, and you can also see it in the internal graphs. Yes, you can see this line which displayed. So as I said, yes, this was the typical scenario for some big customers. You can see this violet line, yes, which is utilization of configuration syncers going very high. Yes, you can see all those huge spikes because every time a full config sync was done. Yes, and that's a huge waste of resource actually. So the only way how to improve the situation, as I said before 6.2, was to increase the interval. Yes, so you can increase the interval between those spikes. Then your database can take a rest for some time. Yes, so you are doing full update, then you are waiting 1 hour, and then you are doing another full update. Yes, somehow this helped, and there was also possibility to do it on demand. Yes, so if you needed some rapid config change, you were able to do it on demand. Yes, and this is how Zabbix worked all the time until the version 6.2 come. And the 6.2 was quite, I would say, revolutionary. Yes, in this way. So, as I said, this is still the old screenshot from the old config syncer, and you can see, yes, 23 seconds database time. Yes, so there were optimizations in memory, there were other optimizations, but you can see the performance killer is 23 seconds in this screenshot SQL time because of the full sync. So how it's changed now? Instead of doing a full synchronization of the configuration every time, we are doing it just once. So when you start Zabbix server, okay, you need to do the full synchronization. Yes, there is no other way because Zabbix server was not running, memory is empty, everything is empty. So, okay, you need to read the configuration, which will take some time. Yes, so this is the biggest delay for Zabbix server to start. Yes, to load full configuration. Okay, but once you are done, then starting from version 6.2, you will read only config updates. Yes, which means, okay, you add a new host. In next config sync, you will need to synchronize only this single host, not all other 10,000 hosts, yes, but you will need to just add one host or remove 5 hosts or maybe add a couple of items, yes. And I think you can clearly see the benefit, yes. So the updates are much more smaller, and because of that, they can also be done more rapidly. Yes, you can have rapid config updates. look here, the default interval is 10 seconds. And I think actually you can even decrease it to like maybe 5 seconds, which means you open the front end, you create a host, you create a new item, you like count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it works. And it works, right? So you don't need to reload any caches manually. Just add it, wait a little bit, a couple of seconds, and your monitoring system is already updated and works. Yes, so this is really, really great. How it's achieved from technical perspective? Typical solution. So we have a change log. Yes, we have a change log, we have a table, and the table tracks all the changes. Yes, every time you change something in the configuration, you have some record inserted into this page, into this table, and then Zabbix will use this table for synchronization. Yes, Zabbix will know which records are synchronized, which records are not synchronized, and it will track this table, and based on this table, updates will be done. Now, there is one more question. Okay, we have a change log table, how those rows are appearing here, how this magic happens. And the magic happens based on database triggers. I think Edgar's in previous presentation introduced the settings which are required for MySQL. Yes, this additional setting, trust log bin creators, which you need to enable. And here is explanation why you need it. Zabbix in version 6.2 is creating database triggers. Yes, so here we are not talking about problem detection. We are not talking about Zabbix triggers. Yes, if you are DBAs, then you already know it. For other people, so database triggers is something you create into the database engine itself, which detects changes. You can see here, create trigger items insert after insert on items, which means the database itself is tracking changes, right? So when you create a new item, you are doing an insert into database. The database engine detects it, and you can see it inserts the row into this table. So the solution, because of this, is very stable. Yes, if you have a reliable database engine, which works as expected, then the database itself is tracking the changes, writing them to the change log, and then based on this change log, Zabbix is doing config changes. Yes, but because of that, as I said, you need to create a couple of database triggers, which of course are created automatically by Zabbix installation or upgrade process. Okay, and maybe a couple more notes. So all major databases are supported: MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, and even SQLite 3. Yes, actually, this changelog is needed just once. This changelog is needed just once. Once the config cache is updated, it's no longer needed, and it will be cleaned up automatically, so you don't need to care about it. And additional privileges. And okay, the last comment. So it was released like a long time ago, more than 1 year ago, and I haven't heard about any problems. It's stable, it works, yes, but maybe you are a little bit worried, right? Maybe your Zabbix server is already running for more than 1 year, and you are doing only incremental updates, and you may think, okay, maybe something went wrong, maybe something is not right. Can I resynchronize the server? Yes, you can restart it, right? So if you will stop and start Zabbix server, it will do a full synchronization like in the old good times, yeah? And you will have a full snapshot, which then will be used for incremental updates. Yes, so you can always do a full refresh if you want so. Okay, so that was the first step in the right direction, yes, from our side. And then come 6.4, and next step was proxies. Look here, and those are the default settings. You can see config frequency 3600 seconds, which is exactly 1 hour. And I think you see the problem, right? If you are monitoring something, if you are making config changes, you need to wait for exactly 1 hour, which is a lot of time. Yes, you may want to decrease this period. You may say, okay, I want to do it every minute. Yeah, why not? But we have the same situation. Zabbix is sending full configuration to the proxies. So you have a huge database query, and additionally, you also are sending a huge amount of data over network. Yes, imagine that you have like 1 gigabyte of configuration. Yes, we have such monster proxies, yes, working on 1,000 values per second. Yes, and you are constantly sending tons of data over the network. And basically, every time you're sending more or less the same config data. Yes, exactly the same problem. So this also needs to be solved. Yes, and okay, initially we introduced data compression. This was introduced somewhere around version 4. Yes, and this improved situation. You can see the ratios, right? The configuration was compressed 10 times. You know, that's very impressive benefit, right? 10 times. But still the problems remain. So still lots of data and huge database load. Yeah, and also there was the same situation as with server. You could initiate Zabbix proxy config update manually. Yes, for active proxies. Yes, for active proxies, it was possible by logging onto the proxy and issuing a command. Yes, but you know, okay, you need to open this black SSH console to the proxy, and you need to log in there as a root, let's say, and execute a command. And it worked only for active proxies. Then in 6.2, we introduced the same for passive proxies, and we introduced this possibility through a front end. So now you see you have a list of proxies in 6.2, and you can, let's say, mark some proxies, and you can refresh configuration on demand for both active and passive. Yes, and okay, so all this was very cool. Yes, and we had a lot of excited customers, but it is still full configuration. Yes, so we have improved the front end, we have improved the functionality. Yes, we have data compression, but we are still sending entire configuration, which is just like not a very good solution technically, right? Okay, also one more slide. Edgar's already, I think, talked about it, or maybe not. So in version 6.4, we also have a proxy version compatibility list. Yes, so we have official backward compatibility between between server and proxies. Yes, and you can see the versions, and you can see are the versions supported, not supported, outdated, and all this is cool. But here, yes, the main feature of 6.4, at least from the configuration perspective. Yes, there are other cool features, but from the perspective of configuration is proxy instant configuration synchronization. Yes, so the same as for Zabbix server, but why it was delayed? Why it was delayed for 6 months? Why it was not released in 6.2? Because we need a different approach. Yes, so in this situation, because the configuration is actually happening between server and proxy, not directly between database, we needed to introduce config revisions. Yes, so in 6.4, every proxy has a configuration revision, yes, which is stored in a config cache. Every host macro has a revision number. And so what happens? Basically, every time you change something in a host configuration, the host configuration revision updates. It increases, let's say, by 1, right? And then when proxy is doing config sync, it is comparing revisions for all objects. And if the revisions match, okay, no need to update anything. If the server has a newer revision, then this update will be sent to proxy. Yes, another very simple idea. Yes. Also, proxy is using sessions, and yes, the same situation. When you start a proxy, the proxy is empty. Yes, and the proxy will do initial config sync. Yes, because there is no other way how to do it. Yes, we need to do a full synchronization. But after that, as I said, we will work with config revisions. Yes, here you can see a simple example. Yes, so proxy has config revision 125, and let's say server has a config revision 126 for some entity. Yes, so this is not entire config, this is just some entity. And then the changes are sent to proxy. Yes, okay, there still is some excess data, which means, as far as I know, if you are changing a single item, then I think entire host was sent or something like that. Yes, so there is still maybe some little bit excess data, but you know, otherwise it's great, right? It's great, and it is also stable. Yes, it is also stable. So only hosts which are changed are updated. Yes, you can see here. This is why there are always compatibility problems. Yes, and you need to have the same version for server and proxies to maintain full compatibility, because the data protocol also is changed. Yes, so in 6.4, proxy introduced session ID, proxy introduced config revision. Yes, and then the server is reporting back. Yes, so for all those features to work, you need to have server 6.4 and proxy 6.4. Yes, otherwise it will just not work. Yes, but you can see here, yes, 10 seconds. From default 1 hour, we went down to default 10 seconds. It's like 360 times improved performance. Yes, and just a couple of bytes sent if something is changed. Yes, so I think if you have a large environment with lots of hosts, lots of proxies, you will like it. You will really like it. Yes, less traffic, faster updates. Just, you know, create some hosts and start monitoring. And yeah, so the scenarios when still a full config will be sent. Okay, let's say you restart a proxy. You have a new session, you need to resynchronize. Yes, also, unfortunately, if you restart Zabbix server, then all the config revisions on Zabbix server will go back to 1, and also you need to do resynchronization. Yes, the same happens on the failover if you are using high availability. And okay, just in case something goes wrong. Yes, I don't know what can go wrong, but let's say if proxy and server will compare revisions, and let's say the proxy will say, hello, I have a higher revision than server, which is technically impossible. Yes, then they will do a full resynchronization. Yes, but as I said, this is some fail-safe mechanism. Yeah, and you can see the difference. Yes, you can see the difference. Yes, we have a proxy in a nice city, Antwerp. Yes, and you are doing initial synchronization with, I think, in this example, it's like, okay, it is 200 kilobytes, yes, which is not so much, okay, yeah, but still, you can see here, yes, after that, after initial synchronization is done, next time only 4 kilobytes will be synchronized. Yes, so instead of synchronizing 200 kilobytes, you're synchronizing 4 kilobytes. Yes, I think everyone can see a clear benefit here, right? Yes, and you are not losing anything. Yes, so there, I don't know any drawbacks to this. Yes, this just works, and this is just faster, and this is just better. Okay, and yeah, so the last thing, we have a server, we have a proxy, and then we have an active agent. So we did the same with active agent. Yes, previously, active agent was updating configuration every 2 minutes. Yes, and it was also a full config update, which means you have a lot of active agents, you have a lot of excess traffic going. Yes, and also big delay, 2 minutes, right? So, you have minutes there, 2 minutes there, proxy there. So sometimes you need to wait for a very long time. Yes. So what we did, we also improved it. Also based on the revisions, the idea is very similar to the proxy. So now agent checks config update by default every 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds, agent sends like, hello, do you have new config? Do you have new config? But those are very small data probes. Yes. And it's comparing revisions, right? And here you can see, yes. So if revisions are different, then you are doing some update. If revisions match, there is like a request and a small response, like no changes, and that's all. Yes, so there is a very small traffic constantly circulating between agent and server, but yeah, but if there are changes, then they are updated. I would not say instantly, but in next 5 seconds. Yes, so now you create a new host, you assign the host to active agent, you wait like 5 seconds and go. Yes, so another nice improvement. What about older agents? Older agents are supported, but of course they will not have this nice possibility. Yes, if you're still using active agent 6, agent 6.2, or maybe even agent 4, who knows? Yes, they will still work. But of course, without this feature will be available only to the brand new 6.4 agents. And yeah, okay, it's time for me to finish. Otherwise, Artur will say that Kaspars, you are running out of time. Yes, so what you have, I think you have only benefits, right? You have time benefits, which means everything happens much, much, much faster. You have traffic benefits, right? You are not sending megabytes or gigabytes of useless data over the network, only the changes you need. And database, yes, you are not executing those huge select queries, right? You are just reading change log, which is very small table with just some changes. Yes, so I think, yeah, it's time to move to 6.4. Yes, and actually it was released, I think 3 or 4 months ago, and currently I think it's production already. Yes, why not? So yeah. Okay, thank you very much for your attention, and yeah, let's look what we have in the questions.
Yes, thank you, Kaspars. We do have a few. I'll just read them from the top. Does the configuration of the proxy occupy space in the config cache of the server?
Yes, the server configuration cache will become a little bit bigger. Yes, so because the server config cache now additionally needs to store the revision number. Yes, so I don't know, maybe 5% increase in size. Yes, but yeah.
Next up, how does one determine the required size of the configuration cache?
By looking at the graph, right? So you have Zabbix server template, you have internal metrics. The internal metric shows how large is the config cache, and it shows how much it is used. It will show percentage. So if your config cache is like 95% used, it's the last warning. You need to increase it, or you are risking to have a crash in the middle of a night, right?
And I'd say it very much depends on the current environment. So if you have 100 hosts, which isn't that much, and your config cache is 95% full, I'd increase it by a large number, especially if I plan to onboard like a large number of hosts. If I have, I know, 100,000 hosts, my config cache is already very big, then I'd probably just increase it by a reasonable number just to last me. I don't know, if it took a year to fill up, then just increase it so it lasts for another year, just going by what I currently have. So it very much depends on what kind of configuration you currently have. You need to look at the trend, I think, of how it fills up and then figure it out that way.
Yeah, and sorry, one more comment. So how to crash Zabbix very quickly. Create like 10,000 hosts and then assign a template to them. And your config cache, can increase like 5 times immediately. Yes, so be very careful on those massive config updates. Yeah.
Thank you. Next up, can the changelog request overload the database on the performance side?
I don't believe so. So, okay. We have a situation, very, let's say, unlikely situation when you are doing a rapid config updates, right? So you are changing your configuration like every 5 seconds constantly, but the question is for which reason? Yes, this must not happen on a monitoring system. Yes, we are talking about configuration, which are item update intervals, item keys, item names, item tags, maybe, yes, which are not like changing every 10 seconds. I haven't seen such instances, so I don't believe it. Yes, and the benefit which you are, let's say, so the database performance which you are saving by not doing those huge selects every time. Yes, okay, you are writing into small table and you are reading small tables, so I don't believe, but it may have negative impact.
And the final question, not maybe very much related to your presentation, but somewhat. Are there any considerations when not using Housekeeper on a 1 terabyte database, for example?
Okay, Housekeeper on a 1 terabyte database can be catastrophic. I think, Artus, you know it, right? And yeah, unfortunately, this is not really a Zabbix fault. Yes, but this is how databases are designed. So you can write much faster than you can delete. Yes, if you are writing to database, you are just appending records, right? If you are deleting something, you need to look up, you need to find the record, and only then you can delete it. And this is much more expensive, yes? And these huge databases, the delete operations are very expensive. So what we suggest, the partitioning. Yes, you can find some articles. Yes, you need to partition database. On MySQL, you need to use partition script. On the, if you are using Postgres, by example, then you can use timescale, and the timescale will do it for you. If you are very rich and you are using Oracle, okay, you will need Oracle Enterprise Edition as far as I remember, and this is another paid option, but okay, you are already using Oracle, so yeah.
Thank you. That was the last question. Thank you a lot, Kaspars.